Intro music fades out. Okay, imagine planning a funeral for your loved one, paying thousands of dollars, and trusting that their final days on Earth would be handled with dignity, only to discover their body was left rotting in a maggot-infested storage room while the funeral home owners cashed checks. That's not a horror movie plot. That's what happened in Chicago this week. And honestly, this isn't just about one corrupt funeral home. It's a symptom of something way darker in the death care industry. Let's break down the basics first. Authorities found 56 decomposing bodies at South Chicago Chapel, many with rodent bites and maggots. The owners, Joanna and Clark Morgan, weren't new to this kind of horror. They previously ran a crematory that got shut down in 2024 for storing remains in a warehouse and never returning ashes to families. So, these people weren't incompetent. They were repeat offenders who kept getting chances to profit from grief. But here's what fascinates me: why does this keep happening? Why does every few months, another funeral home or crematory make headlines for treating human remains like discarded furniture? Let's unpack the psychology here. When families hand over a body, they're surrendering control during one of the most vulnerable moments of their lives. You trust professionals to handle the logistics because you're too broken to ask questions. But cases like this reveal a grotesque power imbalance. The Morgans allegedly exploited that trust for years, knowing most families would never think to inspect their back rooms. And honestly, that's what makes this so chilling. It's not just the decay, it's the betrayal of a sacred social contract. Now, some might say, this is a rare freak incident. But let's look at the bigger pattern. In the past 3 years alone, 24 bodies hidden behind a wall in Colorado, 18 decomposing in Georgia, 200 rotting in a Colorado storage unit. These aren't isolated mistakes, they're systemic. And here's my theory: the funeral industry has become a wild west of privatization and deregulation. When death becomes a profit center, corners get cut. But when you're dealing with corpses, those corners aren't just financial, they're moral. What's even more disturbing? The Morgans' history was public record. Their crematory got shut down in 2024, yet they opened a new funeral home in 2022. How does that happen? Either the licensing system is broken, or worse, it's complicit. Because let's be real, families don't shop for funeral homes like they compare car dealerships. They're desperate, grieving, and often choose whoever's closest. So when regulators fail to flag known offenders, they're not just dropping the ball, they're enabling exploitation. Let's talk about the human cost. Picture Latasha Johnson from the article, whose mom's funeral happened the same day investigators arrived. She thought her mother was laid to rest with dignity, only to learn her remains might be among those decomposing in a building she'd already said goodbye to. That's not just traumatic, it's soul-eroding. These aren't just decedents or remains, they're people's entire worlds. And when institutions fail then, it doesn't just disrespect the dead. It fractures trust in the living. But here's the question most people aren't asking: what happens next? Yes, the Morgans might face charges. But will this change the system? Unlikely. Until we treat death care as sacred infrastructure, not a business, the same failures will repeat. Because when you combine human vulnerability with minimal oversight, you don't get miracles. You get warehouses of rotting corpses and families left wondering if their loved ones suffered indignities even in death. So next time you hear about a funeral home scandal, don't just feel horrified. Feel furious. Because this isn't about a few bad apples, it's about an orchard that's been rotting for decades. Outro music fades in. What's your take? Is this just criminal negligence, or a symptom of capitalism failing at humanity's most sacred moments? Let me know in the comments, and if this video made you rethink anything about the funeral industry, hit subscribe. Because sometimes, the scariest stories aren't the ones that go bump in the night, they're the ones hiding in plain daylight.